On a quiet Wednesday morning, Michael Zick was washing his car, completely unaware that his life and the lives of others were about to be irrevocably changed. The suburban street was tranquil, a scene you'd expect from a typical neighborhood. But as Michael worked, a car screeched to a halt outside his house, shattering the calm. It wasn't just any car. It was a white Kia Sportage, and inside, a family's nightmare was unfolding. Michael noticed a man sitting calmly in the driver's seat. Beside him was a woman, her body rigid with palpable fear. This was no ordinary couple, and Michael knew it. The woman, later identified as 31-year-old Hannah Clarke, was desperately trying to escape the grip of her abusive husband, Rowan Baxter. But as Michael approached, an explosive blast tore to the car, a deafening noise that echoed across the street. The terrifying sound of the explosion marked the beginning of a tragedy that no one could have predicted. Michael rushed toward the vehicle, instinctively grabbing the hose to battle the relentless inferno that was consuming the car. Flames engulfed the vehicle in seconds, and inside, Michael could hear the frantic screams of Hannah, her voice filled with terror. She was engulfed in flames, struggling to escape. Despite the intense heat, Michael bravely fought the fire, desperately trying to save the woman who was trapped inside. The chaos didn't end there. As Michael continued to battle the flames, something unexpected happened. The man, Rowan Baxter, emerged from the burning car, but he wasn't rushing to help his wife or children. Instead, he was disoriented, stumbling out of the car, his body also badly burned. He briefly looked at Michael and then, with a shocking move, ran back into the flames. But it wasn't to save anyone. Rowan returned holding a knife not to help, but to prevent others from extinguishing the flames. For a moment, Michael stood frozen, trying to process the madness before him. The woman, Hannah, was still alive, severely burned, but her primary concern was not her own suffering. Her cries were for the safety of her 3 children who were still trapped inside the blazing car. She knew that her chance of survival was slim, but her only focus was on her kids, screaming through the pain for help. Michael, without hesitation, tried to enter the vehicle to rescue the children, but the fire was too intense. He couldn't get close enough. Hannah, burned over 97% of her body, managed to gather what little strength she had left to provide crucial details to the first responders. With a clear and steady voice, she identified Rowan as her abuser and named him as the one responsible for the fire. Her strength was remarkable considering the extreme pain she was in, and the clarity with which she spoke underscored the reality of the man she had tried so hard to escape. But it wasn't enough. Despite all her efforts, the fate of her children was sealed. And as the fire consumed everything, Michael could do nothing but watch, helpless. The lives of Hannah, Aaliyah, Liana, and Trey all tragically ended in an instant. Their futures stolen, their cries unheard. But what drove Rowan Baxter to commit such a horrifying act? What had led him to this point? If you think this story is chilling, make sure to hit like, subscribe, and comment below. Don't miss out. Stay with us as the story unravels.
Rowan Baxter was no ordinary man. To the outside world, he was a former professional rugby player, a fitness coach, and a seemingly successful businessman. But beneath the surface, his life was a carefully constructed facade, one that concealed the darkness of his true nature. His relationship with Hannah Clarke, the woman he would later kill, was far from the fairy tale it appeared to be. When Hannah met Rowan in 2008, he was a charismatic figure, an athletic, confident man who seemed to have it all. He was 11 years older than her, a professional rugby player with the New Zealand Warriors, and to many he appeared to be the perfect match. They shared a love for fitness and soon became business partners, eventually opening a gym together. Despite Hannah's parents' initial reservations, Rowan charmed his way into their lives, and they quickly became a family. But something wasn't right. From the beginning, there were warning signs. Rowan's temperament was volatile. He was known for his confrontational nature, and it wasn't just limited to his interactions with clients at the gym. He had a pattern of bullying and belittling people, especially women. While Hannah thrived in her career, excelling as a personal trainer with a reputation for kindness and dedication, Rowan's clients quickly began to dwindle. His aggressive attitude and behavior were driving them away, yet he struggled to accept that he couldn't control every aspect of his life, including his career. The couple's marriage was strained long before their separation in 2019. At first, Rowan's emotional manipulation was subtle. He belittled Hannah, controlled her every move, and constantly undermined her self-esteem. As the years went on, the abuse became more overt. Rowan didn't just control what she wore, he insisted on micromanaging her every action, even going so far as to tell her what colors she could wear. He banned her from wearing pink, claiming it attracted too much attention. These acts weren't out of love. They were out of insecurity and possessiveness. Hannah tried to maintain peace, but over time, Rowan's behavior grew more erratic. His control over her escalated to the point where he isolated her from her family and friends. He forced her to delete her personal Facebook account, replacing it with a joint account that he controlled. Rowan recorded their conversations, questioned her every move, and manipulated their children to further control her. His abuse wasn't just emotional, it was physical, sexual, and financial, though it was always hidden behind a veil of protection and concern for her well-being. By 2019, the marriage had deteriorated beyond repair. Hannah finally found the strength to leave Rowan, but her escape wasn't easy. She had to plan it carefully, knowing that Rowan would stop at nothing to regain control over her and their children. The day she left, her friends helped her pack up and take her children to her parents' house. Yet even after her departure, Rowan's abuse didn't stop. He continued to manipulate her through their children, and his obsession with controlling her remained unshaken. Despite all of this, Hannah never gave up hope. She tried to protect herself legally by filing a domestic violence restraining order. But as we know, the system can fail even the most determined. Rowan continued to violate the order, and his behavior grew even more dangerous, culminating in the tragic events that would forever change the lives of everyone involved. Isn't it terrifying how someone can hide their true nature for so long? If you're shocked by what you've heard, don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. This is only the beginning.
The tension in the Baxter household had been building for years, but the breaking point came when Hannah finally made the brave decision to leave Rowan. It was a decision fraught with fear, uncertainty, and the weight of knowing what might come next. Rowan's control over her life had reached an unbearable level, and despite her efforts to hold everything together, the psychological and emotional toll was too much to bear. The first step in Hannah's escape was taken in the middle of a routine, just another day when Rowan was at work and Hannah's friends came to her aid. They quickly picked up the children from school, packed a few essential items into garbage bags, and whisked them away to Hannah's parents' house. It was a rushed and desperate move, the kind that only happens when a person feels they are in imminent danger. But despite this initial relief, there was a sense of dread that never left Hannah. She knew that while she was physically safe, her situation was still precarious. She confided in her mother, Sue, in a chilling moment of clarity. "Who gets the children when he kills me, Mom?" she said, words that would haunt her family for the rest of their lives. Hannah knew that Rowan wasn't just angry, he was dangerous. The fear she felt was not irrational, it was the stark reality of living under the control of someone like Rowan. Hannah's mother immediately urged her to seek police protection, which she did. A domestic violence restraining order was obtained, but that didn't change the reality of the situation. Rowan didn't care about legal boundaries or court orders, he cared only about his control, and he wasn't going to let anything get in the way of that. As their separation played out, custody of their children became a significant point of contention. Initially, Hannah proposed a custody arrangement that would allow Rowan 165 days per year, alternating between 3 and 4 days a week with the children. But Rowan, in his obsessive need for control, rejected the proposal. Instead, he demanded a perfectly split 50-50 custody arrangement, something that made no sense practically, but served his desire to manipulate the situation further. Hannah's fears were not unfounded. Rowan's behavior toward their children was becoming increasingly concerning. He was taking them for hours beyond the agreed-upon time, refusing to return them to Hannah even when they were supposed to be back by a certain hour. In one of the most disturbing incidents, just before Christmas in 2019, Rowan took the children for a few hours and didn't return them as promised. Instead of returning them by 4 p.m., he didn't show up until 8 p.m.
That alone sent Hannah into a spiral of worry, fearing for their safety. The tension and fear reached a breaking point when Aaliyah, their oldest daughter, called Hannah in tears while with her father. She was scared, terrified, because she had no idea where they were. The young girl, just 6 years old, was already aware of the precariousness of the situation. She knew that if she upset her father, she would be punished, and that fear gripped her every time she was alone with him. It was heartbreaking to think that children so young had to navigate such emotional manipulation. But Aaliyah wasn't the only one suffering. Leona and Trey, just 4 and 3 years old, were caught in the same disturbing web of control and manipulation. Rowan was using his children as pawns in his ongoing battle for dominance, all the while showing no regard for their safety or well-being. But it wasn't just about custody. It was about Rowan's need to dominate every aspect of Hannah's life. His constant surveillance, his refusal to accept any kind of boundaries, and his escalating behavior all pointed to one undeniable truth: this was not going to end well. It was a situation where every move was calculated, every attempt at escape thwarted, and every ounce of hope slowly fading away. If you think you understand the lengths some will go to maintain control, like this video and subscribe for more updates on this heart-wrenching case.
On the morning of February 19, 2020, the routine seemed just like any other. Hannah was preparing her children for school. Rowan was supposedly on his way to pick up his coffee. But no one could have predicted the horrifying sequence of events that was about to unfold. For Rowan Baxter, this would be the day that shattered everything: his family, his children, and the woman he could no longer control. The day started out like any other, with Hannah getting her children ready. Rowan, however, had other plans. Earlier, he had already purchased disturbing items from a local hardware store: zip ties, cleaning fluid, and a fuel can. But this wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision. This was cold, calculated, and premeditated. Rowan knew exactly what he was going to do. Around the same time Hannah was loading her kids into the car, Rowan was watching from a distance. He parked across the street and waited for the right moment to strike. As Hannah prepared to drive away, Rowan approached the car with a fuel can in hand, and in an instant, everything changed. Hannah, in a desperate attempt to protect her children, resisted. She pleaded with him, begging him to stop. But Rowan wasn't listening. He was consumed with rage and control, and this was his moment to finally destroy everything she had worked so hard to build. He screamed at her, demanding she drive. Terrified for her life and the lives of her children, she complied. Once inside the car, Rowan wasted no time. He pulled out the fuel can, dousing the interior of the car and the people inside with gasoline. But what was even more shocking was Rowan's lack of concern for his own safety. Despite the impending disaster, he didn't take any precautions. There was no gasoline on him, suggesting that he wasn't planning to die in the fire. His goal wasn't a mutual destruction. It was a calculated, cold-blooded act of violence. At that moment, the car was a ticking bomb. Hannah, in a final desperate attempt to escape, saw a man washing his car on a nearby street. She screamed for help, but it was already too late. Without warning, Rowan lit a lighter, and in a horrifying instant, set the car ablaze. The blast was deafening. Michael Zwick, the neighbor washing his car, was blown back by the force of the explosion. His ears rang, but he immediately rushed toward the vehicle, desperately trying to help. He grabbed the hose, trying to douse the flames, but the fire was relentless. Inside, the screams of Hannah were unbearable. Despite being fully engulfed in flames, she somehow managed to crawl out of the car, her body a searing mass of agony. But where were the children? The fire was so intense that it was nearly impossible to approach the car. Michael, though severely burned on his hands and face, didn't hesitate. He attempted to enter the car, hoping to save the children trapped inside.
But Rowan wasn't finished. After emerging from the burning car, badly burned, he ran back in, not to save the children, but to prevent anyone from extinguishing the flames. He was holding a knife, pushing everyone away. Hannah, her body nearly destroyed by the flames, continued to scream for help, but her pleas were now focused solely on her children. She said, "I couldn't save my kids," her voice full of unbearable pain. But despite her screams, the fire was too intense and no one could reach the children in time. And then, as if this nightmare couldn't get worse, Rowan took matters into his own hands. He attempted to take his life. He plunged the same knife into his chest twice. His body, already ravaged by the flames, would not survive. Despite the heroic attempts to save him by an off-duty paramedic, Rowan Baxter succumbed to his self-inflicted injuries. You won't believe how this tragedy unfolded. If you're as disturbed by this as we are, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. This story is far from over.
What Rowan Baxter did on February 19, 2020 defies every expectation. His actions that day were the culmination of years of control, manipulation, and emotional abuse. But what came next, the aftermath, was almost as horrifying as the crime itself. The tragic deaths of Hannah and her 3 young children, Aaliyah, Liana, and Trey, didn't just mark the end of their lives. They marked the beginning of a chilling investigation into how a man's unchecked rage and control destroyed a family despite repeated attempts by that family to seek help. The story didn't end with the flames. As the fire was extinguished and the wreckage settled, the police were left to pick up the pieces. Hannah, burned beyond recognition but still alive, summoned incredible strength in her final moments. Despite suffering 97% burns across her body, she was coherent enough to tell police exactly what had happened. She named Rowan as her attacker, describing in vivid detail the horror of the moments leading up to the fire. Hannah's testimony was a testament to her strength. As she lay dying, she made sure the authorities knew everything. She told them how Rowan had doused the car with gasoline and set it on fire. She even identified the protective order against him and explained how it had failed to protect her. Tragically, it wasn't enough to save her life, and within hours, Hannah succumbed to her injuries, leaving behind a legacy of courage that would inspire her family to fight on in her memory. But the grief did not stop there. Rowan Baxter's death was not an end to the pain. If anything, it only complicated the aftermath. Despite his self-inflicted wounds, which would likely have killed him even without the stab wounds, the circumstances surrounding his death were deeply unsettling. The toxicology report confirmed that Rowan had no drugs or alcohol in his system. He was entirely sober, fully aware of the horror he was inflicting, and still, he carried out the unthinkable. As investigators delved into the case, they uncovered the premeditated nature of Rowan's crime. This was not an act of passion or a sudden outburst of rage. Rowan had planned this act carefully, gathering supplies like zip ties, cleaning fluid, and a fuel can days in advance. His actions on the morning of the murders were calculated, cold, and methodical. He didn't just kill his wife and children, he wanted to hurt them in the most terrifying and painful way possible. What's even more haunting is the failure of the system that was supposed to protect them. Despite repeated incidents of abuse, despite a protection order in place, and despite police intervention, Rowan was allowed to have access to his children until the very end. The restraining order against him was breached multiple times, and the authorities, though they acted quickly when alerted, were unable to prevent this tragedy. Hannah's family, devastated by the loss, channeled their grief into action. They founded the Small Steps for Hannah Foundation, a memorial to their daughter and her children. The foundation's goal is simple but vital: to raise awareness about domestic violence and prevent other families from suffering the same fate. The name of the foundation, symbolized by the footprint left by Hannah's severely burned body, stands as a reminder of the resilience she showed even in the face of death. This is the kind of story that needs to be heard. Like this video, subscribe, and leave a comment to show your support for victims everywhere.